After 36 very long years, the highly anticipated sequel of Beetlejuice is finally upon us. So I figured it was only right for us to grave dig into the magic of the nostalgic cult classic Beetlejuice and figure out why, after 167 times, it keeps getting funnier. So let's kick up the juice and see what shakes loose. Hey Ghoulsters, welcome back to our channel. If you're new here, my name is Mandy Spooks. Some might call me the ghost with the most. And this is our spooky oasis where we celebrate the magic of Halloween and spooky pop culture every day. So if you too are strange and unusual, you're gonna wanna hit that subscribe button because here it is a dark room all the time. Wow, I never thought I'd be able to like squeeze in so many movie quotes within like the first minute of a video. So I'm very proud of myself, and I think I probably just ran out of all of my Beetlejuice knowledge. Like I just let it all out right there. Anyway, I am very excited about today's topic because I feel like everyone's talking about Beetlejuice, but nobody's talking about why we're so excited about it and why it took 38 years, which is probably like a world record or historic record of how long it took to get a sequel for one film. So we're gonna get into all the juicy details. See what I did there? I wasn't even planning it. I'm just too hyped for this. I need a drink. I need to calm down. Drink some water, Mandy. Some water juice, and let's reset. All right, so the movie Beetlejuice was released on March 30th, 1988, which, like I said, was 36 years ago. The movie was starring Alec Baldwin, Gina Davis, Catherine O'Hara, Winona Ryder, and of course, the actual ghost with the most, Michael Keaton, who is also many people's favorite Batman. What a talented man, I might say. So on my channel and all of my platforms, I always like to share the audience score from Rotten Tomatoes because I think it's very important to share the audience. I don't always agree with critics, but I think audience say it all. They're the ones who show up to support movies. And while I was pulling all my info for this movie, I realized that there is a new name for the audience score on Rotten Tomatoes, and it's called the popcorn meter or something along those lines. And it is a score of 82%. However, the only reason I'm sharing the critic score for the first time is because it's the same. It's 82%, which I think is crazy to see that the audience and critic score is the same for a film. So I think that says enough about the film, and the fact that it's a B, I think says a lot too, just because a lot of films either have like a really low score or extremely high, but I feel like a B is like a solid grade, you know, which falls in line with it being known for like its B feeling effects and such. So we're going to share a quick overview of the film for those who may not have seen it, because I'm finding that even though it feels like everyone in the world should have seen this film by now, that's not usually the case. So the spirits of a deceased couple are harassed by an unbearable family that has moved into their home and hire a malicious spirit to drive them out. So that is the gist of Beetlejuice. There will definitely be spoilers in this, so if you have not seen the film or you don't want spoilers, be sure to turn back now. All right, so fun facts about the film before we get into why I love it, why everyone else loves it, the whole shebang. So I learned that this movie was not supposed to be called Beetlejuice. It was actually originally going to be called House Ghosts. That's what the studio wanted to call it. And then Tim Burton jokingly suggested to call it Scared Sheetless. And the studio loved it, and that like really caught Tim by surprise, and he was actually really worried that that was actually going to be the name of the film. But thankfully it was not, and we got Beetlejuice. So that was very interesting for me. I also found out that actually I think I already knew this, but I was reminded of this, that the very first time that Michael Keaton came out as Beetlejuice on set, the entire crew started chanting, "Juice, juice, juice, juice. Juice, juice." How many times can I show my cup? Anyway, and that really hyped Michael Keaton up, and he was like really excited about it, and now it's his favorite movie that he's ever worked on. So I think it must be really cool for him to be able to reprise the role. I'm curious to hear if the crew members did the same thing this time around, because that would have been a really cool like full circle moment. Shame on you crew members if you didn't do that. And then it was also interesting to hear that Beetlejuice was the first DVD that Netflix ever mailed out, and it's crazy to me because like I don't even think of Netflix being around back in 1988, but apparently it was. And fun fact that I think people are actually aware of that I didn't really put together until recently, but Beetlejuice is actually in 14 minutes of the entire film, which I thought was really like surprising, because I personally didn't feel that or feel like he's not in it enough when I've watched it. But we did receive a comment from Alice in Wonderlush, who said, sorry, not Alice in Wonderlush, I got my comments wrong. Yana Loves Mitchie said not enough Beetlejuice time was the only thing she didn't like about the film. But I think that that's very intentional, because I did hear with the new sequel that it's going to be similar. I'm pretty sure I heard it was 11 minutes, but I could be wrong. I didn't double check that Beetlejuice is only in 11 minutes of the new film. So I think that that's very intentional, of course. And I feel like if he were in it too much, it would maybe like kind of push it over the edge, if that makes sense. I don't know, but I know there's an intention behind it. Anyway, I also found out that there was only a $1 million budget for the visual effects, which is the biggest reason why Tim Burton decided that he wanted all of the visual effects to be practical effects that were very like tacky and B-movie like. And even though I think his goal was for it to be tacky, I don't think it was tacky. I think that it worked very well and made it the unique film it is, and that's a really big reason why it has become such a cult classic. And then the last interesting thing I have for you guys is, well, not the last interesting, the last fun fact I learned, because this whole video is interesting and you should stay till the end. Anyway, I found out that Michael Keaton actually ad-libbed like 90% of his lines, and some of the ones that made it into the film weren't even actually supposed to be him acting. It was just like him naturally coming out. I think one of the parts was when he kicks the tree and it like falls and he says like nice fucking model or something like that. That was him actually like taking a dig at the set designer or prop designer, and Tim Burton liked it so much that he kept it in. So it's really cool to find out that like most of his lines were not planned, and secondly, they weren't actually him trying to put those into the film. So I'm curious to learn more about Beetlejuice as it comes out and we get more behind the scenes stuff after its release, to see if they took the same approach with the character this time around, and if they gave Michael Keaton that freedom, because I'm sure he would have done great if whether they did or didn't give him the lines, you know? All right, so I did want to take a minute to talk about why I think this film has stood the test of time. I did take a minute to ask our community to share their thoughts, so I will be getting into that at some point. But I just wanted to give a brief overview of this film. So like growing up, I feel like I liked this film, but I didn't appreciate it for what it is. And the older I get, the more I start to like this film more, because what I like about it is that it's not horror, but it's not actually a family-friendly film. And I've also seen throughout the years, like those people who didn't experience Beetlejuice younger and see it as adults now, especially in today's times, are like, oh my God, Beetlejuice is a horrible person. He's a pervert. He's a child. I don't want to say the word actually, because I don't want to get flagged. But people don't understand why we like Beetlejuice, because they're not seeing him at the time that he was released years ago. So they don't appreciate him for like the campy, raunchy demon he is. I think people forget, like, he's not supposed to be a good person. Like, that's the whole point of Beetlejuice. But I think that people who saw it when it came out loved it for what it was. And maybe at the time it did feel very like, oh, campy, B-movie, really cheap effects. But as time has progressed, I think that people have really appreciated those effects. In fact, one of the comments I received of what people love about this film in the community was Alice in Wonderlush did say the stop motion animation, it was so unusual and something that stood out in the 80s. End quote. And I think that actually still rings true today about how unusual it is and how it stands out amongst like all the high quality digital effects we see, right? So I feel like that's what has made it unique, and I'm really excited to see the new one, because Tim Burton and Michael Keaton have talked a lot about how they wanted to take the same approach with this new film so that they could be very seamless and integrate a lot of practical effects. I'm actually not positive if they're taking the stop motion route or not off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure that at some point it'll be included in the film, even if it's not like a really big part of it, because I think it would be a mistake not to have it, especially being a Tim Burton film. And I think, so going back to what I was saying is, as you get older, you kind of start to understand the storylines a lot more. Like when I was younger, I didn't really get like why Lydia was so moody or gothic. And as you get older, you realize that there are actually like thoughts of her wanting not to be alive anymore. And as you get older, that becomes darker and you understand it a lot more. And this film is actually about life and death and being caught in between, and just like how horrible humanity can be about wanting to like always exploit things that are different or make money off of them. And those are all themes that I didn't see when I was a kid. I just saw like how fun Beetlejuice was, and it was spooky, and I loved it because I always loved the spooky aesthetic even when I was a little girl, right? But as I've gotten older, every time I see it, I don't think it gets funnier every time. I think it gets sadder every time, if I'm being honest. But I think that's the magic of it, because Tim Burton, as always, has done such a great job of putting some really dark themes in a really fun world that makes you forget how heavy those themes can be and makes them a little bit more digestible for people who might not be so comfortable with those subjects. And maybe I'm reading into it too much, and that's not really like how heavy it should be, but I think that like genuinely, when you really stop and think about it, like the Handbook for the Recently Deceased, Never Trust the Living, like all of those themes are actually very real heavy topics. But I think that's what makes this movie so fun, because in a way it also gives you hope that it can be that like life and death and all of those topics can be a very fun adventure as well, right? So I think that that is something that makes this movie extremely unique, and that's the reason it has stood the test of time. I mean, that's why 38 years later, people still want more Beetlejuice. And yes, it's because Michael Keaton brought this hilarious, amazing character to life that probably no one else could pull off, but it's also because it ages so well with you if you saw it when you were younger, because you start to appreciate it more and more each time. And for those of you who don't feel comfortable with it and aren't a big fan of it, I do challenge you to like watch it again and try to have a different perspective about it, and like realize that like Beetlejuice is not supposed to be a good guy. He's not a good guy, and they tell you that in the film. Of course, I don't want him to do anything horrible with Lydia, but you kind of have to like accept that that's who he is to appreciate the film for what it is, because there's just a lot going on in it. So yeah, I think that's like the main reason why I really love the film. And of course, I really love the aesthetic as usual. I really love the costume design throughout the entire film. Like, I was actually thinking, as I was doing my research, I was just like, it's always crazy to me with these spooky movies that become cult classics like Beetlejuice and Hocus Pocus, when you have this character that just comes to life so astonishingly well and becomes this like iconic person in film history that literally didn't have like something to go off of. And what I mean with that is like Beetlejuice and Winifred Sanderson, and I've talked about this with Winifred before, is like Michael Keaton and Bette Midler did not have like, oh, this real person to go off of and develop this like crazy personality and just make them so believable in a costume. Like, they didn't have that. And they did such an amazing job of like making these characters look realistic. Like Beetlejuice, for example, whether you love or hate him, like some of you do, like he sparks a real emotion out of you, and he's iconic and he's memorable, and like I just said, nobody else could play Beetlejuice but Michael Keaton. And I think that that's what makes it so incredible, because at the end of the day, like, I've personally been watching all of the like social media content they've been putting out for Beetlejuice, and they've had Beetlejuice acting like a content creator, and you see him like without this like fancy spooky lighting, like straight up with like a Ring camera in front of him in real like room lighting, and he's still Beetlejuice. Like, no matter what lighting he's in, no matter what special effects are around him, nothing, like, that is who he is. And it's just crazy because, like, who would have thought like a random guy with mold on his face, with crazy hair, who is a pervert and is just like a disgusting dude, would be so believable, but he comes to life. And I think that that's why this movie has stood the test of time, honestly, as well. It's just like, you can't deny that Beetlejuice is an iconic character, whether you love or hate him. And I think that Lydia, of course, was just such an amazing character. Like, as I was watching the film, I think this was the first time that I've paid such close attention to Lydia when I was rewatching to like get ready for this video. And she's just such a, like, she comes off so genuine, in my opinion, and I feel like she really is struggling to like understand, and she cares about the Maitlands, but she cares about her family too, and she's just stuck between a rock and a hard place. And I think I just like never really appreciated Winona Ryder's work on this film until recently, honestly, because I've always just been so enamored by like the special effects and the spooky stuff and Beetlejuice that I kind of forget to like focus on what a great job Lydia does, Winona Lydia does, and the Maitlands too. Like, it absolutely like breaks my heart that they set you up to like fall in love with this awesome couple at the very beginning, this like wholesome, heartfelt couple. Like, how can you not love Barb? Like, she's such a sweetheart. And then that happens to them, and like they just want their home. And I'm over here getting emotional over Beetlejuice, but there's like so many themes happening. Like I said, like it's not just about life and death, but it's like also this feeling of like the Maitlands have their home and it's being taken away from them. And like, how do you deal with that? Like, there's just so much to take in. So like I said, every time you watch it, you focus on something else. And for me, this rewatch was very focused on Winona Ryder's performance. And I think the reason why I wanted to take the time to really pay attention to it is because they have done such an incredible job with the marketing for the next movie, between Lydia and Astrid being played by Jenna Ortega. It's very clear that Lydia is going to have another very big role in this film. And so I really wanted to like take it all in and pay attention to who she was in this film so that I can understand where she's coming from and who she really is as an adult in the next film. But like I said, she's just like such a great, wholesome, genuine character. And I can imagine that not many teenagers at that time had the ability to be as like spooky and authentic as we are now in 2024. So I feel like she probably gave a voice to a lot of spooky girls back in the 80s. And what else? I also need to talk about the music, of course. One of our ghouls, Lalick, did say as a kid, it was whimsical, it was never scary, lol, it's still fun as an adult, and the soundtrack was great too, end quote. Yes, the soundtrack, like, I also think we haven't heard much about the soundtrack yet, and I actually haven't even checked if it's Danny Elfman. I'm pretty sure it should be, but we do know that we got a new rendition of the Deo song, which was released in the trailer for the new film. So I think, of course, we have a high standard set for the sequel. I'm trying so hard not to talk about the sequel with this film because I really want to focus on the original. But the music in the first film is just phenomenal. And I actually found out that this isn't by Danny Elfman, but the Deo scene, Tim Burton was actually worried that people weren't going to like that scene. I think he thought that it was going to be like really corny and that it wasn't like upbeat enough or scary enough. I don't remember, but he just didn't think it was going to land well. And lo and behold, it became one of the most iconic scenes in film history. So I think it's really cool that they're taking that somehow into the next film. I'm really excited. I could talk again about the sequel. I'm not going to. We'll have a different video for that on the Ghoulmates. But yeah, Danny Elfman did such a great job with this film, as always. Anything Danny and Tim do together, you know, is going to be like a very spooky, magical adventure. But I think this one is especially really fun. Like, the minute the movie starts, you hear it, the din din. I can't even recreate it, but it's just like so good, so catchy, so fun, and it just like really fits Beetlejuice's character. So that's definitely one of the best parts. I mean, the music was so good in the first film that they ended up doing an entire Broadway musical off of Beetlejuice. So that says enough about it, I think. I do want to pause for a second before we move forward, because I don't normally do this, but I would love to hear from you guys what your favorite scene is right now. Like, take a minute to leave a comment down below. Like, I really want this to become a space where we all talk to each other, of course. Like, I feel like my community goes through spurts where like sometimes we're very engaged and sometimes we're not. Currently everyone's super chatty on Discord, which I really appreciate, but I would really love this to be like a cute little moment of like a honorary moment for Beetlejuice the original, because I feel like we're getting lost with the sequel excitement right now. So I would really, really love to hear each and every one of you's favorite scene from the movie, because there's just so much. Honestly, like, how can you pick just one? But I would love to hear what your favorite scene is. So let me know in the comments down below. As you do that, I'm trying to contemplate on my end, like, what is my favorite scene? And this is really sad, but as I'm thinking about it, I think my favorite scene is when Otho summons the Maitlands and the bride, or Barb, is like filling in her wedding dress, and she's, I guess, like dying or aging, or I don't really know what to call it, but like the sadness in her face is so real, like it kills me. And in that moment, you see like how much every single character cares. And I think it's just like such a beautiful moment in the film, because like you finally see like this moment where like everyone's on different pages. And like people have like different motives and have different feelings about how they feel about life and death and stuff. But in that moment, it's like so beautifully heartbreaking that it's enough to get everybody on the same page and realize like this is a real life. And we're like, whether she's dead or alive, like she feels things. And I think that that's like my favorite scene in the whole movie. Like the effects on it, like everything about it is just gorgeous. Like the costume design, the effects happening with like the mask and the hand breaking, and just everything about that scene is just like absolutely gorgeous. And that's where it like the fun and games begin, where like they're trying to come up together to fight what's right and wrong for them, you know? So yeah, I'm very excited to read your comments on what your favorite parts of the film are. I did want to talk about one negative comment we did receive about the film, which was Alice in Wonderlush. Sorry, I'm not sure if I said this already or not, but I want to revisit it because I had some thoughts. She said, nothing really that I didn't dislike about the film, but I wish it hadn't taken so long to do a sequel, to be honest, but happy it's happening, end quote. I also know that a lot of people are like, what the heck, it took so long, but I actually believe that everything happens for a reason. And I really do feel like if it had happened anytime sooner, it would have totally been like a flop. And not because like we wouldn't have shown up, but because just like there has been something so magical brewing in the spooky community and in pop culture in general, that Beetlejuice falls into that really weird category of like, if it had not been so good, it would have been a flop and like completely forgotten about, right? Because it's that weird movie, that weird niche that falls between like, it's not horror, it's not family, it's kind of like Lisa Frankenstein too, where it's like you can't really tell what genre it fits into, so that makes it hard to market. And I think it would have just like been lost between the trenches, honestly. Like it just wouldn't have hit as well. Even me, like now I still meet people and I'm like, what do you mean you don't like Beetlejuice? Or like you don't want to go see it? Like nothing. It's just not mainstream as much as we think it is. But as the spooky community and the horror community have started to grow, we've really gotten our moment, guys. Like Halloween is appearing in stores like freaking May now, if not sooner. And it's funny because like I myself have been Halloween hunting and gotten like actual cashiers telling me like, you guys are ruining this. And I'm like, excuse me, like wrong person to tell this to, first of all. But secondly, like other holidays, like the C word, start before even Halloween has its moment. And so it just goes to show you like when capitalism jumps on the train, you know that being spooky is in and very popular. And I think because of that, they picked like the right time to really go hard with this film because like the marketing has been incredible. Like I actually can't even wait to hear what the marketing spend was in comparison to the actual production budget was, because I'm like 99% sure it's probably going to be larger. Like the marketing has been insane. They have really treated this like Barbie level marketing with the amount of collabs they've had out. Shameless plug, I did unbox my Beetlejuice makeup products on my TikTok and Instagram. And what else? Yeah, so that's how I'm feeling, is just like, I don't think that it would have been the massive hit it was if they had done it sooner, but I have also heard that the reason they waited is because Tim Burton was just like never really inspired to do it until he met Jenna Ortega and realized like she is the person for this role. So I'm very curious to see like what this movie actually is, and I also think it's very heartwarming that they waited so long. Like I think we would have gotten a very different sequel if they hadn't waited so long. Like if it had come out a couple years after, it would have probably been another like, I don't know, like just very different, versus like Lydia and Catherine O'Hara, her mom, are now a lot older. They've lived life. Like they're going to be very different characters. And I'm really excited to see like, who did they turn out to be? Like, what did they do with all of their entire lives? And I'm also excited to see like, what is Catherine O'Hara's relationship with Astrid going to be like? Like, I don't know. I'm just excited for all of it. I think that everything happens for a reason and it was meant to happen this way. And we would have never had Jenna Ortega. And so like, I feel like this film is probably Tim Burton's like whole full circle career moment of like his entire life's work has finally like come together. Like he has the like everyone he could have wanted for this film, because it's definitely clear that like Jenna is his new Winona, and so it's just like really beautiful to see it all come together, and I'm so excited, and I'm pretty sure that I'm gonna end up crying at Beetlejuice So yeah, I really hope that I did this justice, because I feel like there's so much you could say about this film, but obviously I don't want it to be so long. But I really hope that I captured some of the magic that I feel like a lot of people shy away from. A lot of people talk a lot about like the practical effects, the stop motion, but I feel like we don't do enough talking about like the actual screenwriting and the story at heart. So yeah, I can't wait to see the sequel. Be sure to subscribe to the Ghoulmates channel. I will leave it at the end here somewhere so that you can subscribe, because Mr. Spooks, Master of Ceremonies, and I will have a premiere review for you ready on Thursday at 6 p.m. So don't miss it. Until next time, sending you ghouls and kisses. Bye!